Welcome back to The Exchange. Airlines enjoying a solid 2019 with the NYC Global Airline Index up about 24% this year. However, as we turn the page to 2020, there are serious headwinds on the horizon. Labor costs are set to rise as contracts need to be renegotiated for union workers. The Boeing 737 MAX jet is still grounded, and we don't know when it will be back in service. Plus, oil prices, yeah, they're at a 3-month high, pushing fuel costs even higher. So here to drill down on airlines in 2020, we've got Seth Kaplan, principal over at Kaplan Research, also Leslie Josephs, our own CNBC.com airlines reporter. And we're going to start things with you, Leslie, to give us a sense, set the stage for us. Is 2020 going to be a good year, bad year, or a neutral year for the airlines?
Well, this was also supposed to be a really great year for the airlines, and we had the MAX issue. But to set up, they are seeing great demand. Travel demand is really strong. Airline executives are very proud to boast about corporate demand, especially people flying in the front of the plane if their employers allow it to. But there are also monster negotiations coming up across the airline industry. So labor groups including pilots, flight attendants, catering workers, mechanics. So like you name it, and it's up for negotiation. We're talking more than 100,000 people.
So Seth, are these labor costs going to be the biggest factor, the biggest issue that airlines will face in 2020?
Well, they should hope it's the biggest issue because the labor costs rising as a percentage of the overall cost pie are in some senses kind of a high quality problem, and they are rising as a percentage. Part of that is just a function of the fact that fuel costs are rather low. So, that's good. And yeah, the reality is that when times are good, you have employees saying, hey, it's our turn. They remembered bad old days when a lot of these people who've been around for a while made concessions. And so that is the expected challenge in 2020. What you hope, and kind of as Leslie mentioned with the MAX and so forth, is that you don't have all kinds of other unexpected challenges, because then you could have the confluence of higher labor costs along with who knows what else, this being the shock-prone airline industry. Over the years, obviously, we've seen terrorism, we've seen health pandemics that even when they don't turn out to be as bad as feared, can scare people into not flying. And obviously, the ever-present threat of rising fuel costs. Right now, none of that obviously anyway, on the horizon.
Seth, I'm curious. I mean, you watch this stuff for a living. You advise clients. You talk to people about what's going on. How scared should investors be, or even the flying public, about what's happening with the Boeing 737 MAX and the delays it's taken to get it back into service?
Well, it's a growing problem. It's sort of the initial chaos of the grounding, right? And just flights canceled and so forth gave way to actually a bigger impact, because back when the planes were first grounded, there just weren't that many of them. Southwest and American had to make some adjustments. United, although it had some, wasn't really impacted. Now, month by month, you're dealing with airlines that expected to have more of these planes. So the impact for airlines is basically a forced capacity cut. So if you're an airline like Delta, which gets the unit revenue benefit of less supply in the marketplace, but doesn't have to deal with the actual grounding, JetBlue, others, in some senses, although of course they would root for this, not a bad thing financially, the airlines that are directly impacted, they benefit too from the probably higher unit revenues than would otherwise be the case if we had that supply, but they have to deal with this. And yeah, as time goes on, doesn't it almost seem that, although ostensibly we should be closer to recertification, it's getting harder than ever to call when this is going to be back in the air. If the plane, if it's not a first quarter event, then who knows? Because there are thousands of these supposed to join the fleet here in the world in the coming years, and nobody knows at this point what to expect and what to expect of consumers who generally move past things when there's a crisis, generally forgive and get back on the plane or the airline, but this time it kind of uncharted waters.
All right, so Leslie, let's give the last word to you here.
Well,
baggage. Who's got the least baggage and who's got the most, and what airlines could be poised to come out of 2020 looking better in this?
Well, American Airlines is negotiating with numerous groups. They have their pilots, their flight attendants, mechanics, fleet workers, and many other groups. So they say they're poised for a turnaround. Investors are really looking for a change there because they have lagged in revenue. They had a very public, vicious battle with their mechanics union earlier this year. They sued them. They won an injunction, and the airline is trying to clean that up. And CEO Doug Parker said in the last earnings call that we expect a lot of improvement in the coming year. And they've already seen improvement with better fewer flights are canceled or delayed. Delta had also given a very bullish forecast for 2020, going ahead, and they expect some expansion there and increased revenue. To Seth's point about the 737 MAX, one thing consumers can look for is that they might not find those bargains that they expected to see with those great fares for vacation, because airlines are constrained with capacity.
All right, lots of issues for sure in 2020 for the airline industry overall. Leslie Josephs, Seth Kaplan, thank you guys very much. Always
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks.
Happy holidays, Seth, and to you, Leslie.
Thank you.
Well, California is facing